Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today, to really get under the hood of a pretty interesting small cap company, Mama's Creations, Inc. Ticker is NASDAQ, Mama.
And just before we dive in, a quick heads up, this analysis is one of the priority deep dives we do for our Stock Analytics AI members. They get exclusive access to all our S&P 500 coverage and these custom requests.
Right, so if you want that priority access, it's just $4.99 a month. Definitely check it out. But for everyone else, please do like and subscribe. It helps us a lot. Or, drop a super thanks if you want a specific company covered.
Okay, so context.
Huh.
It's September 24, 2025, and Mama is trading around $10.77 a share.
And look, this isn't just about meatballs anymore, is it? The story here is this really dramatic operational turnaround. You've got a CEO who came in, slashed freight costs by like half.
Yeah, pretty incredible. And he's got this clear roadmap, or at least he says he does, for building a billion-dollar business out of this.
But here's the tension, right? The market seems super bullish. Consensus loves it. But that valuation, is it priced for absolute perfection? Or is this billion-dollar deli dream actually baked into the price already?
Exactly. That's what we need to unpack. Because the numbers, well, they leave zero margin for error. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's start with the core business itself. Chapter 1, the business. Consolidating the deli aisle. So, Mama's Creations. Used to be Mama Mancini's, mainly Italian stuff. But the sources now, they paint a picture of a real strategic shift. They're calling themselves a one-stop shop deli solutions platform. What does that actually mean, this whole vertically integrated model?
Well, it means they're trying to be more than just a food brand. They're acting like a logistics and supply chain partner for grocery stores by handling R&D, manufacturing, and distribution themselves.
In-house, right.
Right, in-house.
Yeah.
They basically simplify life massively for retailers. Retailers are really struggling with complexity, labor shortages, all that stuff. Mama comes in and says, we'll handle it.
And the product range is, well, it's exploded. It's not just meatballs. Over 50 proteins, 150 kinds of salads and grains, 25 plus olives now with the Olive Branch brand.
Yeah, and that scale is key. After buying Crown One, they're running at about a $200 million annualized revenue rate. Products in, over 12,000 stores?
Huge reach.
And think about where they're playing. The prepared food section in the deli. That's a $25 billion market inside the larger $45 billion grocery deli space.
And it's fragmented, right? Lots of little players.
Exactly. Super fragmented. It's ripe for someone like Mama to come in and sort of roll things up, consolidate.
Okay, so the value prop. For consumers, it's this affordable restaurant, grande quality food, nice timing with everyone complaining about restaurant prices.
Very timely. And that grandma thing, that narrative, it actually matters. That's part of their competitive edge, their moat.
How so?
Well, the sources mentioned they're the only branded meal in the grab-and-go section of Publix. That's a big deal. It shows brand strength.
Exclusivity in a prime spot.
Precisely. Plus, think about the retailer again. If Mama is providing this huge range of stuff, proteins, salads, olives, all from one supplier, it becomes a real pain to switch to. It creates stickiness, switching costs.
Makes sense. One truck, one invoice, simpler operations.
That's the idea.
Okay, so who's the architect behind this big shift? Let's talk leadership. Chapter 2, the captains, evaluating management and capital strategy.
Yeah, this really seems to pivot around the CEO, Adam Michaels. He came on board in September 2022.
And the company before him was struggling.
The sources say dogged by low margins and inefficiencies. So yeah, Michaels came in as the turnaround guy, the Michaels effect, they call it.
Right, and that 50% cut in freight costs, how'd he pull that off? Just better negotiation? Or was it more fundamental? Seems like a massive saving.
It sounds like it was a total overhaul, a big company playbook, as the sources put it. Yes, renegotiating contracts, definitely. But also investing in automation in their plants, optimizing trucking routes, consolidating shipments, basically bringing serious supply chain discipline.
Fortune 500 thinking in a small cap company.
Pretty much. Yeah. And that's why you saw margins more than double relatively quickly. Cash flow improved, debt got cut way down.
And the team around him, they've got backgrounds from big CPG players, right? Mondelez, General Mills.
Yeah, Gordon Food Service too. Deep experience. They know how to talk to retailers, how to manage complex supply chains. That definitely gives them an edge.
So their focus with capital, it's all about growth. M&A seems key.
Absolutely. Aggressive growth through acquisition is the strategy. They're not paying a dividend. They're reinvesting everything back into scaling up.
The Crown One deal seems like a good example. All cash, $17.5 million. And they bought it for just 0.3 times its expected revenue for FY25. That sounds cheap.
Very attractive valuation. Yeah, it fits the playbook. Buy smaller, maybe less efficient players, integrate them, improve margins.
But is it working? Are they actually creating value with that invested capital? What's the ROIC look like?
Return on invested capital, yeah. The sources put it somewhere between 9.84% and 12.43%. For a company growing this fast, hitting double-digit ROIC consistently, yeah, that suggests they're generally making good use of the money. The M&A engine seems to be adding value so far.
Okay, good context. Now, the part everyone waits for, the actual financial results. Chapter 3, the numbers. A deep dive into financial health. Let's talk top line first. The revenue growth is, well, it's undeniably impressive. Went from about $40 million in FY21 to over $123 million in FY25.
Yeah, strong compound growth. And even a latest quarter, Q2 FY26, showed 24% year-over-year growth. The engine is definitely firing on revenue.
Okay, but what about margins? You said they doubled after Michaels came in, but where are they now?
Yeah, that's where it gets a bit more complicated. After that big improvement in FY 2024, the trailing 12-month gross margin has actually dipped back a bit, hovering around 25%.
So those cost savings didn't fully stick or something else is going on?
It's a couple of things, according to the sources. First, integrating Crown 1. It was bought cheap, but it had lower margins, so bringing it in initially dilutes the company average. That's temporary, supposedly.
Okay, integration drag. What else?
Commodity costs, beef and chicken prices have been higher, and that directly squeezes their margins on the protein side. So they're fighting input cost inflation even as they try to scale.
Right, the classic food company challenge. Despite that, how's the overall financial health? Cash flow.
Actually, pretty good there. Cash flow from operations really surged in FY 2024, hitting $11.6 million. That shows it's increasingly able to fund its own growth, becoming self-funding, which is crucial for that M&A strategy.
And the balance sheet, can it support more deals?
Looks solid. Debt-to-equity ratio is low, around 0.36, very conservative. They definitely have the flexibility to do more M&A without straining themselves financially.
Okay, growth is strong, balance sheet is good, cash flow improving. Now let's address the elephant in the room, the valuation. What is the market paying for all this?
Right. This is where it gets really interesting, maybe a bit scary depending on your view. The trailing 12-month PE ratio, it's sitting at approximately 96.
96, wow. Okay, for context, typical consumer staples PE is what, 15 to 25?
Exactly. So 96 is, well, it's sky high. It implies the market isn't just expecting strong growth, it's expecting phenomenal, near-perfect execution for a very long time. Exceptionally high expectations baked in.
How do we even begin to sanity check a number like that?
Well, one way is discounted cash flow, DCF analysis, trying to estimate the intrinsic value based on projected future cash flows. Now, for a small cap like this, you have to use pretty aggressive assumptions to even get close to the current price.
Like what kind of assumptions?
High initial growth rates, maybe 28-32%, reflecting that billion-dollar ambition. And you also use a higher discount rate, say 10-12%, because small caps are inherently riskier.
Okay, so plug in those optimistic numbers. What kind of value range does that spit out?
Even with those bullish assumptions, the model range comes out somewhere between $9 and $12.50 per share.
And the stock is trading at $10.77.
Right, smack in the middle of a very optimistic DCF range. It tells you the current market price is already assuming a lot goes right. Very little room for errors priced in.
Okay, so the market price reflects huge optimism. What does Wall Street think? Let's look at sentiment. Chapter 4, the crowd. Gauging market sentiment. Wall Street analysts seem to agree with the optimism, right? Consensus is strong buy.
Yep, strong buy. And the average price targets are up there, between $14 and $15.33. So the analysts covering it think there's still, 30% plus upside potential from here? They're definitely buying the growth story.
But there's always another side to the story. What about the short sellers? Are people betting against this?
There is a contingent, yeah. Short interest isn't massive, but it's moderate, around 4.5% to 4.7% of the shares available to trade. That indicates there's a dedicated group of bears out there.
And what's their argument likely based on?
Almost certainly that PE ratio of 96. They're betting on the execution risk, that the company can't possibly live up to these sky-high expectations priced in. It makes Mama a classic battleground stock. Bulls versus bears, focused on valuation and execution.
And technically, how does the chart look?
Well, the trend is definitely bullish right now. The stock's trading well above its key moving averages, the 50-day and the 200-day. That's a strong signal of momentum.
But could it be too strong? Overbought?
That's the risk, yeah. When a stock runs up this much and trades so far above its averages, especially with that valuation, it can be seen as technically overbought. It means it could be vulnerable to a sharp pullback if there's any hint of bad news.
Okay, so a split view in the market, technically strong, but maybe stretched. Who actually owns the stock?
Good question. Let's look at the shareholder base.
Chapter 5, the owners, understanding the shareholder base.
A very high percentage is held by institutions. We're talking 63% to 65%. Big names, too, like Wasatch, BlackRock, Vanguard.
So the big money believes the story.
It certainly lends credibility, yeah. Having sophisticated institutional investors on board is generally a positive sign.
Yeah,
but
there's always a but.
there is. High institutional ownership can also mean it's a crowded trade. If sentiment suddenly shifts, or if one of those big holders decides to sell, it can create significant downward pressure on the price because there are so many shares looking for an exit.
Makes sense. What about the insiders? Management.
They have a decent stake. Insiders own about 9.5% to 10% of the company. That's generally seen as a good thing, aligns their interests with shareholders. Skin in the game.
Are they buying or selling?
Net buyers recently, which is positive on the surface, but you have to look closer. The sources specify most of the recent buying is through acquisition, non-open market transactions.
Meaning
It's likely stock awarded as compensation or shares vesting from options. It still shows commitment, they're holding onto the stock, but it's not the same strong bullish signal as if they were going into the open market and buying shares with their own cash.
got it. So strong institutional presence, good insider alignment, but maybe not outright bullish insider buying recently. A lot depends on these big players staying confident.
Exactly. Price action could be quite sensitive to shifts in their sentiment.
Okay, before we wrap up with a verdict, we absolutely have to cover the potential roadblocks. Chapter 6, the hurdles. A comprehensive risk assessment. Let's do a quick SWOT. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. We know the strengths. Management, brand, market position. What are the key weaknesses we've identified?
Number one is clearly that valuation. The near 100x PE ratio leaves absolutely zero margin for error, as we keep saying. Any slip-up in execution could hit the stock hard.
And maybe customer concentration, relying heavily on a few big grocery chains.
That's a potential weakness too, yeah. Losing even one major customer would be a significant blow.
Okay, opportunities.
The big one is continued M&A. Keep executing that roll-up strategy in the fragmented deli space. And also tapping into new channels. The sources mention convenience stores, C-stores, as a potential new area for expansion. That could be quite large.
Right. Now the threats. What are the biggest external dangers?
I think the most significant long-term competitive threat has to be private label.
Store brands, you mean?
Exactly. Retailers like Kroger, Albertsons, even Publix, they're all investing heavily in their own store brands, including prepared foods. Those brands often offer better margins for the retailer than selling Mama's products. That's a constant battle Mama will have to fight.
Okay, private label. What else?
Commodity volatility is always there. We mentioned beef and chicken prices. Any sustained spike in their key ingredients can really compress those margins they fought so hard to improve.
And any broader economic or political risks?
Well, the sources mention one specific hypothetical risk: potential broad U.S. tariffs on imported goods, maybe in 2025. While MEMA sources mainly domestically, tariffs could still hit things like specialty ingredients, maybe organic sugar, or packaging materials like steel and aluminum used in cans or trays.
And that would force them to raise prices.
Potentially, yes. Which then raises the question of whether consumers would accept higher prices, or if demand would suffer. It's a risk factor to keep in mind, even if it's hypothetical right now.
Okay, a lot of potential hurdles alongside the opportunity. Let's try and synthesize all this. Chapter 7, the verdict. Synthesizing the bull and bear cases. So let's sum up the bull case. What's the core argument for buying Bema?
It boils down to a proven, effective management team that executed a major turnaround, a very strong balance sheet giving them flexibility, and a clear strategy, the roll-up, to consolidate a fragmented but growing market. Plus, you have strong consumer trends supporting demand for convenient, quality prepared foods.
Solid bull case. Now the bear case summary.
It's almost entirely focused on that valuation and the associated risks. The stock price near $11 basically demands years of flawless execution. Bears are betting against that perfection. They see high risk in integrating future M&A smoothly, managing commodity costs, fighting off private labels, and ultimately justifying that sky-high 96 PE multiple.
So putting it all together, excellent company, clear strategy, but priced for the moon. What's the final take for someone looking at the stock today?
Look, the sources paint a picture of Mama being a really well-run company with significant potential. No doubt about that. However, The current share price of $10.77 sits right in the middle of that optimistic DCF range we calculated, $9 to $12.50.
Meaning the market already gets it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The market has already priced in a very successful, very optimistic future. So for investors who really look for a margin of safety, buying something for significantly less than they think it's worth to protect against things going wrong, well, the current price just doesn't offer much of that cushion. The upside seems priced in, leaving you exposed if execution falters.
An excellent company, perhaps, but not necessarily an excellent stock at this specific price point unless you have extreme confidence in flawless execution.
That seems to be the crux of it, yeah.
A really fascinating look at a company trying to reshape a whole section of the grocery store.
It really is. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Here's something for you, the listener, to mull over. We see the grocery store perimeter fresh foods, prepared meals growing at 8–10% a year. Is this trend signaling the beginning of the end for the traditional center aisles? Are cans and boxes slowly heading towards obsolescence?
Food for thought indeed. Maybe grab a Mama's Creations meal while you ponder that one. Okay, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. If you got value out of this, maybe drop us a super thanks. It helps us do more of these one-off requests.
And definitely consider joining Stock Analytics AI for €4.99 a month. You get priority access, custom dives, and our ongoing coverage of all the S&P 500 stocks.
And the necessary final point. Please remember, this analysis was generated by an AI system. It's for educational purposes only. It is absolutely not financial advice.
You have to do your own research, or better yet, talk to a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decisions.
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.